Most people think chastity is just denial and frustration, but Locktober has turned into a tradition that's about way more than not getting off. I'm Alessandra from Dom Sub Living, and today I'll show you what it's really about. Welcome to the Dom Sub Living podcast. So, what actually happens during Locktober? Is it really just men locked in cages for 31 days? Or is there something deeper, something about intimacy and power and even community? That's what we're diving into today. I've been a BDSM educator for years now. I've taught hundreds of DOMs and subs. I've taught individuals and couples. And in this episode, we're unpacking Locktober and chastity culture. Everything from its quirky meme roots online to how real couples use it to transform their dynamics. We're going to talk history, preparation, community, reflections, stories from my students, and how to make chastity fun instead of frustrating in a bad way. And stay with me because later in this episode, I'll share one of my students' biggest lessons about choosing the wrong key holder. It's something you don't want to miss. But before we dive into what Locktober even is, if you want to become the best submissive you can be, definitely grab my free How to Be a Good Sub cheat sheet guide at domsubliving.com/sub. I'll drop a link for it in the description too. All right, so let's start with the basics. So, what even is Locktober? Well, Locktober is an annual chastity challenge that happens every October, and the idea is pretty simple. So, just submissive men, but honestly, it can be all genders really, but they lock themselves in chastity cages for the entire month. So, where did this even come from? Um, I would say it kind of started in the mid 2010s and just kind of in online forums. Just small groups of kinksters were kind of daring each other to stay locked for longer and longer stretches of time. Then it just really spread to places like FetLife and Reddit and Twitter and even on TikTok now. So suddenly there's, memes popping up everywhere. And then there's the hashtag that Locktober that is trending every fall. So why did it blow up? Well, honestly, I think just for the humor of it, the idea of an entire month, where you're just locked into chastity, it just kind of sounds extreme. So it makes a perfect meme. And it's a little taboo. It sparks people's curiosity. And then there's just the whole visibility of kink growing online in general now. And so it just kind of created this viral tradition. But here's the real question. So, why do so many people take part in something that, on the surface looks like just self denial? Well, chastity isn't really about what you can't do during that month. It's about what happens when you surrender control. And we'll dig into that in just a moment. So let's talk about the why. Why do people do chastity in the first place? And why would anyone commit to it for a full month? Well, for couples, chastity just really creates this intimacy. So imagine not being able to instantly satisfy yourself and instead needing your partner to hold the key, like literally hold the key. So every little tease, every look, every brush of their hand just becomes more amplified. The intensity and the anticipation just really skyrockets. One of my students, Rex, said, "My favorite thing about chastity is the interaction it leads to between myself and the key holder as we both become closer and learn a little more about one another." So, that intimacy, that closeness is the real reward. Now, Not everyone does this with a partner. Another student I have, Jeff, he shared that he plays with Chastity solo. He said, "My wife is not into BDSM, so I put it on till I get tired of it. Then I give it a rest." So you don't even have to do it the whole month. But those two experiences just really show that Locktober isn't just about not touching yourself, it's about touching parts of your relationship or yourself that you've never explored. And later, I'll show you a tool that makes online key holding not just possible, but fun, kind of almost like a kinky video game. But let's zoom out. So, how did Locktober go from a small dare to a global challenge? Well, it started as a playful online dare, a little subculture thing. But like I said, meme culture picked it up, and suddenly every October you'd see jokes. So pictures of padlocks and tweets about poor subs crying in their cages, TikToks even with countdowns. And then it just kind of bleeding out of the kinky circles into mainstream spaces. So people who had no idea what male chastity was suddenly saw these memes about Locktober, all over their timelines. And it's also worth comparing to No Nut November. So both are challenges about abstaining from release, but the energy is different. So No Nut November is usually framed as self-control, even health or discipline. But Locktober is kink driven. It's about power and surrender and sometimes humiliation, but it's also about play and community. And here's the secret: Locktober isn't really about endurance, it's about transformation. And I know that sounds silly, but here's why, preparation is so important for this. So, how do you actually get ready for something like this? So, first, there's the practical. So, don't just jump into a full month. So, test shorter lockups before October starts. So, get used to the feeling. Practice wearing a cage maybe overnight or for a few days at a time. And sizing is huge, no pun intended, but for men, it can take a while to find the right cage size. For women who are wearing chastity belts, it can take even longer to get comfortable. And don't just get cheap items from Amazon. I highly recommend the company Stockroom. They have a lot of quality gear for this, and you can even use our affiliate link at domsubliving.com/stockroom. So that all was the practical preparation. The second thing is the emotional preparation. So, Locktober isn't just about the physical lock. It's about rules and expectations and communication. So, if you're doing this with a partner, talk about what you both want to get out of it. Is it about teasing? Is it about obedience? Is it about intimacy? And I'll say this. So, would you run a marathon without any training? So, why would you try 31 days of chastity without any practice? But if you're thinking chastity means boredom, just wait until you hear how couples actually spice it up. So, this is where things get really interesting. So, in chastity play, the role of the key holder is everything. When it works, it's magical. The key holder teases, they set rituals, maybe they even have a special locking and unlocking ceremony. It becomes kind of this dance of power and surrender. Rec, my student that I mentioned earlier, he said his biggest lesson was this. He said, have the right key holder and have a bit of fun. If your key holder isn't engaged and invested in you being locked up, but above all, enjoy yourself and have fun with it. So, yes, when everything clicks, chastity becomes one of the most intimate dynamics out there. And guess what? There's even apps that turn chastity into a game. So let's talk tech. There's lots of apps out there. So, Chaster is a popular app. I also love the Obedience app. My Dom and I use that app for other things in our dynamic. You can actually use my affiliate link at domsubliving.com/obedience to get a really good deal on it. But these online apps have made chastity more accessible than ever. It allows online key holding, so it's perfect for long distance couples or even people who are playing solo who just want structure. You can set punishments and rewards and track days, so it becomes very fun and interactive. But when it comes to chastity, there's one mistake I see over and over. So let's talk about the common pitfalls and how to avoid them. So, number one, wrong cage size. It can be painful and uncomfortable and discouraging. So, again, go to domsubliving.com/stockroom to get the, quality gear that I recommend. And then number two is when there's no communication. So if you don't talk with your partner, resentment builds really fast. And then the third mistake I see is forcing it. So this is where you're trying to drag a partner who's not interested and you're just trying to force them into being your key holder, and that never works. And then number four is treating it like punishment instead of play. So how do you avoid these mistakes? Well, start small. You can ask the community for help, but just choose fun over suffering. And above all, remember that chastity isn't so much about deprivation, it's about being playful and exploring different experiences. Now, we talked about chastity culture just, trending because of memes and just, really making it funny. And there's influencers out there who are making it really visible and just people are more curious. But deeper than all of that, chastity really just taps into something universal, the longing for control and surrender. We're seeing kink culture normalized, and chastity is just one piece of a bigger puzzle where dynamics and rituals and play are just becoming part of mainstream conversation. So when we look at Locktober, it's not just a funny challenge, it's a reflection of deeper themes like surrender and intimacy and play. Locktober isn't about locking desire away, it's about unlocking connection, unlocking it with your partner, your body, and the community. Now, I wanted to do a little bonus Q&A here. So, here are some of the most common questions I get about chastity and Locktober. So, one of the number one questions I get asked is what is the best chastity device for beginners? So, definitely check out our affiliate link at domsliving.com/stockroom. But the best device for beginners is just, something really simple. So, something lightweight, something plastic, or, a silicone cage. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars right away. So, start with something inexpensive, but that's comfortable and easy to put on and take off. So don't stress about finding the perfect cage on your first try. Just kind of think of your first device as training wheels. It helps you learn your body and your anatomy, and it helps you learn your comfort level too. And once you know what works, then you can invest in higher end devices. And these are things that are, made of stainless steel or even custom builds too. And then the other question I get asked is how do I get my partner interested in being a key holder if they're skeptical? So, the number one thing to remember here is don't pressure them. If your partner is skeptical, it doesn't mean they're saying no forever. It just means they don't, fully understand what chastity can add to your dynamic. So start by explaining what excites you about it. So is it the intimacy, the teasing, the surrender? So share with them your personal why. Then make it about them. So, what could they enjoy about having the key? Maybe it gives them more control, more teasing power, or just watching, you squirm and the fun of that. So you can also invite them to, try it out with you for a short time. So instead of saying, lock me for 30 days, just say, would you be open to playing with this for a weekend or a night? So short experiments will feel less overwhelming, and above all, let them go at their own pace. So a key holder who's engaged and having fun is the real magic. If they're only doing it because you begged them, it won't last. And then the other question I get is, can you really do chastity solo, and how do you keep it fun? So, yes, absolutely. A lot of people practice chastity solo, either because their partner isn't interested or because they just want to explore that kink on their own. The trick here is to add structure still. So without a key holder, it can get kind of boring fast. So you have to use self-imposed rules. You can roll a dice or even use an app like Chaster to kind of randomize how long you stay locked. You can also tie chastity into other rituals like only unlocking yourself after you've finished a big task or staying locked until, you reach a specific goal. That way it becomes a motivating challenge. But solo chastity can be just as fulfilling as partner chastity. It's all about how much creativity you put into it. And then another question I get asked is, does anyone actually make it all 31 days? So, yes, some people really do stay locked for the entire month of October. But let me be real here. It's not failure if you can't make it all 31 days. For a lot of people, just attempting Locktober is a huge step. Maybe they last, 1 week, maybe two, maybe they unlock early and then try again. So remember, it's not a competition, it's an exploration. The goal isn't to win Locktober, it's about to learn more about yourself and your partner and your desires. So yes, there are definitely people who finish the full month, but there are just as many who use that month as a way to experiment and just really set their own pace. And then what happens after Locktober ends? Do people keep going or do you stop and wait until next year? So that depends on the person. Some people treat Locktober like a once a year challenge. November 1st comes and the lock comes off and they move on. But for others, Locktober is just the beginning. They, discover they like the intimacy or the surrender of it or the structure of it, and they keep chastity going in their daily life. Maybe not 24/7, but in different regular intervals. So maybe weekends, holidays, or even just an every other night thing, or if they're doing a scene. So it's not really about October at all. It's about experimenting. Some people stop, some people keep going, and some people find kind of like a middle ground that works for them. Some people start exploring more aspects of submission and deepen their role as a submissive because of this. But what matters is that you take what you've learned during Locktober and decide what feels right for you in your relationship. And remember, if you do want to become a better submissive, grab my free How to Be a Good Sub cheat sheet at domsubliving.com/sub. The link's in the description too. And until next time, keep embracing your power and pleasure through Dom Sub Living.